I got up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, passed out. My wife finds me unconscious, freaks out. And I wake up and I'm looking at her and I'm like literally about to make a run for the balcony and jump off. Every negative thing that has happened to me, every challenge that I've faced in my life has ended up being the biggest blessing ever.
How do you find the mental toughness to do it when you don't feel like it? I've traveled around the world to find the longest lived people and distill their secrets. And I've developed a sort of idea about what we should do to live the longest by looking at the longest lived people. But there are other ways to look at longevity. And today's guest, Ken Rideout, is the fastest marathoner over 50 in the world. And his path to healthy longevity, at least at age 55, is very different than mine, but we should pay attention to it. So stay tuned. You're going to see a completely different pathway to longevity, or at the very least, how to be able to run fast and stay fit into your 50s. All right, Ken, you have an epic story of starting out as a prison guard, spending time on Wall Street, got involved with opiates, drugs, and really pulled yourself out of it. Why don't you unpack a little bit of this story? And by the way, we're here to talk about The Other Side of Hard, which is a brand new bestseller, your new book, your first one. It's just absolutely taking off. You're going to be on Fox, and you've already been to London talking about it. I'm very happy to have you here. But tell us a little bit about this journey.
Well, yeah, like you said, I've lived many lives and grew up in the inner city of Boston in a very abusive situation with a lot of violence and drug use around me. But from my youngest childhood memory, I never thought that
this was in your family or just in your neighborhood?
Both. And physically abusive in my house. And then my mother's brother lived upstairs from us with my grandmother. And he was a lifelong heroin addict. So him and his buddies were always whacked out, hanging around the house, people coming to beat them up and shit because they were junkies. So they were always running scams, and people would come, grown men, and beat them up. And for a kid, anyone who's seen two grown men have a real fight know how traumatizing that is. Imagine for a child. And then to end up working in a prison, when I graduated high school, I started working at the prison. And while I was going, I never felt comfortable there. I had crazy anxiety. I knew I wasn't supposed to be there. I didn't have any role model or mentor or vision for what I wanted, other than I wanted stability and peace and quiet. But I didn't even know what I wanted at the time. I just knew I didn't want to be where I was.
It was just a job for you, being a prison guard.
Yeah.
Does being a prison guard teach you anything about life, or is it just run the other way?
Yeah, people are ruthless. And my wife offsets me very well because she grew up in literally the most picturesque, perfect family situation, literally as close to perfect as you can imagine. Healthy parents, nice upbringing, private schools, good siblings. And when we're out, sometimes I'll be like, look at this guy over here, watch this. She's like, why are you looking for the worst in everyone? I say, because I've seen how people behave, and I'd rather be prepared for the worst and hope for the best. It's just an interesting dichotomy of the two of us together, because she sees everyone as good and I see everyone with initial skepticism. And it's almost programmed into my brain that I can never let it go. I mean, if I think about it, I'm like, oh, why am I doubting this guy? But initially I'm always like, what's this guy up to? When someone's being overly kind, I'm like, what do they want
what's
from
his
me?
angle?
Yeah. So growing up in high school, I was a really good kid. I played football and hockey. I was the quarterback of the football team. Things were good. I was well-adjusted. I never got in trouble ever. I'd never been suspended from school. The principal liked me. I was friendly with everyone. Got out of high school, started working in the prison. One of the football coaches I was playing against was the warden and said, hey, come see me if you need a job before you go to school. And I was going to Framingham State College, where I was my dad helped me out with a little bit of it, but I paid for some of it, so I had to have a job. And this was a prison where my stepfather had been an inmate while I was a child in the 8th going into the 9th grade. He did a couple years there. Then he gets out of prison, and my mother and father sit me down and tell me, oh, and crazy enough, his name is Ken too, so they called him Kenneth. And Kenneth got a job. He's from Alabama. And I'm like, oh, well, what the hell do I care? Okay, good. And she's like, yeah, he's going to be a janitor. Still don't care. And she's like, at the school department. I'm like, oh my God, what school? My high school. I was you're going to be the janitor in my high school? Come on, man. That was a perfect summary of what they would do to me all the time. I would be trying to do something good, and then my brother would get in a fight with someone that I like, and he was always in the wrong. I was like, they would constantly shoot me in my own foot. So I started working at the prison, which, by the way, my brother would eventually be an inmate there multiple times. Thank God, not while I was there. And it was just a crazy, violent place, as you can imagine. I just turned 18. But when you grow up in the city, in the streets, you know the criminals. Like, I knew a lot of the white guys in there. It was a very segregated place, and I grew up in a very segregated time in Boston. I worked there for like a week, and I was like, are you crazy? Like, this place sucks. I would never want to do this forever. You might as well be an inmate yourself.
So this childhood trauma and these ex-con family members and this job you didn't like, did this somehow lead to your drug addiction?
In a lot of ways, yes. I went to New York. I had a job in pharmaceutical sales, hated it. Met a bunch of young kids, my guys my age at the gym that were working in finance, and I literally thought, these guys are idiots. How are they making this much money? Like, I can do this. And eventually got a job as a trading assistant. Was working there for about a month or two. And, on a trading desk, much like a football locker room, it's a lot of hazing and yelling and screaming. And I was like, okay, I'm okay with this. I played college football and college hockey. I was like, but when I started to be the target of this, and I was boxing for the New York Athletic Club, I had fought like in amateurs through high school and college. I worked in a prison. I was not like what you would call a pushover.
I wouldn't want to mess with you.
Well, they kept messing with me, and finally, after like a month or two, I slapped a guy in the face so hard that they like almost knocked him out. And then they were like, "You're fired," obviously. And but when the senior trader at Enron, who was one of our clients, we were trading commodities, heard about it, he loved it and called me and got me a job within like less than a week, making double what I was making there. But now I also had real clients. And I was no longer like an assistant. I was like a legitimate trader with huge clients. And within...
But the lesson is not slap your way to success.
Don't slap your way to success, but the lesson is definitely have integrity, have character, and when someone pushes you too far, don't let it go. I wouldn't slap anyone unless you're prepared to get into a fist fight. It's funny, every negative thing that has happened to me, every challenge that I've faced in my life has ended up being the biggest blessing ever. And it sucks in the moment. And I tell this to people all the time. You think you're going through a real challenging time, and you are, and it sucks. But if and when you get through this, the things, it sounds corny and cliche, but the things that don't kill you make you better. And they make you stronger. And when that guy found out that I would stick up for myself, he said to me, if you would stick up for yourself like that, I assume you'll protect your clients like that. So I want you to be my broker at this desk that stinks. And I did, and I was rewarded for it. But when I walked out of there fired, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to like move in with my grandmother or something. I don't have any.
Ken, I think you made a really good point that I think our listeners will like. And this is the notion that, a lot of us are going through tough times. And to be able to frame that tough time as the gateway to a better you, if you walk through it the right way. And I think that's part of what you've done here.
Well, I'm going to give you several examples of things that have happened to me that literally had me contemplating taking my own life. And when I didn't, I decided if I'm going to be here.
Tell us about the worst one. I mean, paint us a picture.
It's painful to talk about, but so I start working in finance, and very quickly I go from making no money to making millions of dollars. I'm flying on the Concorde back and forth, London to New York. But in my mentality is still that of a poor kid. So I'm buying like my Armani suits, Rolex watches. I'm trying to fit in. And I'm suffering with this horrible fraud complex or imposter syndrome. So I have a minor ankle surgery in around 2000-ish. And right before I go to London, and I get Percocet to recover, and very quickly my addiction kicks in. As soon as I took those pills, I was like, everything is perfect. I have no anxiety. I feel great. It was like the best feeling I've ever had in my life. I'm like, I want to feel like this forever. And I did for 10 years. But it didn't take long to realize, holy shit, I have a bad addiction, and I'm not a loser, but I'm behaving like a loser, and I don't want to live like this. And for 10 years, I tried to quit and couldn't do it, and tried to quit on my own, couldn't do it, never went to rehab, kept resisting, knowing that not only did I have these underlying issues that I hadn't dealt with, I always was very self-aware, but I knew that this is not sustainable. Like, I've got to fix this. And it got to the point where I was like, if I don't fix this, I'm going to kill myself because I can't live like this.
What's it like being addicted to Percocet?
you're a prisoner. You can't, the Percocets and the need to have those pills takes precedence over everything. You could be going to your own wedding. If you're going to run out of pills and you need to get them to get through the day, just imagine if you know, okay, in 4 or 5 hours, I'm about to be as sick as I've ever been. The flu, everything hurts. My eyes are watering. My nose is running. I'm like, it looks like someone is going to think I'm dying. And I got married, and I had gone on and off Percocet and Subutex, which is like methadone. It's like, it's kind of like an opioid, but you're not really high, but you're very irritable. And it just like, it's basically the lesser of two evils, supposedly. But getting off the Subutex was just as hard as getting off the Percocet. The only thing with Subutex is you don't get high. It just keeps you numb, basically. So when I tell people I was married for 3 years before I got sober, they're like, your wife didn't know you were on drugs. I'm like, she only knew me on drugs. So she just knew that I was like volatile and like irrational at times, but that I was kind and like I was a good person. But she knew that I had my own demons that I was dealing with, not drugs. Eventually she figured it out and would confront me, and I would lie like any good junkie. And eventually when we got matched with my daughter in Ethiopia, we adopted a newborn baby, and we were going to get her, and we had like 2 months. And I said to myself, like, that's it. I've got to do this now or never. I cannot go to Ethiopia with pills. And by the way, I've traveled with drugs all over the world. So it wasn't that I was worried about traveling. I was just like, I can't keep doing this. There has to be draw a line in the sand. So I went to an outpatient detox in New York City where I would check in every morning and they would give me the drugs for the day. So like Ritalin to stay awake, Xanax to calm down, blood pressure medicine to deal with the symptoms at night to sleep. And if I could get 7 days clean with no opioids, they could give me a shot of a drug called Vivitrol, which was an opioid blocker. It blocks the opioid receptors in your brain, so you can't get high. Like it just blocks everything. So I know I've got to get the 7 days, and on about the 4th day, I got up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, passed out. My wife finds me unconscious, freaks out, and I wake up and I'm looking at her and I'm like literally about to make a run for the balcony and jump off. We lived on like the 50th floor of a huge, gorgeous glass high rise in New York. And all I could think was like, I've created this beautiful life for myself and then completely sabotaged myself. Like it was just the most demoralizing, humiliating thing that I've ever gone through. And in a moment of weakness or strength, I just told her everything. And needless to say, she was horrified, but supportive. And then I just powered through the next few days. And that's when I really started running a lot. I just started running as a form of penance almost every day while I was going through these withdrawals, 10 miles of absolute hell on earth. But I kept doing it and sweating and freezing cold and sweating and hurting. And
significantly, the audience should know that you are the fastest marathoner alive over age 50.
Yes.
So this story ultimately leads to a place where there are lessons to be told, but there's a lot of suffering before you get to the learning, really, right?
Yeah. There's a verse in the Bible that says we rejoice in suffering because suffering builds endurance, and endurance builds character, and character gives us hope. And I would repeat that to myself, that this suffering, whenever I'm training, I'm like, the suffering is building endurance. The suffering is like it's my morning meditation. It's my therapy. And before anyone starts saying, this guy's traded one addiction for another. Yes, I have. One addiction had me suicidal, and the other one has me writing a best-selling memoir. And I don't profess to have all the answers, but this was the only way that I knew how to do it.
Is suffering for everybody?
I think that you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable periodically. And I was thinking about this morning when I was running. I'm like, man, I'm miserable right now. I feel like crap. When people ask, do you get a runner's high? I said, yes, every
After
time.
I'm done.
As soon as I stop running, I feel so good. But I think that suffering is a necessity to life. You find out what you're capable of. You learn a lot about yourself when you're suffering, especially when it's in a competitive format like a race. But again, It isn't for everyone. I know what works for me. And my whole book is not a tutorial for people how to live their lives by any means, but it's a lesson.
After prison, go to the opioids and But still,
but it's a recanting of how I dealt with a lot of adversity.
I'll just there's this refrain in the sort of the gym world, no pain, no gain.
Mhm.
But I actually have the opposite opinion. I believe where that there's no joy, no gain. And the reason being that when it comes to longevity, unless you're going to do it for the long run, it doesn't really do you much good. You could work out and have the biggest muscles when you're 18 years old or 25, but by the time you're 50 or 60, if you don't keep it up, it does you no good. So the consistency is so important, and we tend there's a maybe single digit percentages of people who will do something every day they hate or that brings pain. But for most people, it's got to be enjoyable. So if going to the gym is where your friends are, or you like listening to podcasts and do some light weights, I think that's sustainable. But I just wonder what it is about where you conjure the mental toughness to stick. You've been running for a long time now.
Yeah. 5 years, I run 10 miles average every single day. I ran 4,000 miles a year for 5 straight years.
That's stunning. And what astounds me, and I think where the rest of us can really draw powerful lessons from you, Ken, is not having done it for the first year, but what keeps you doing it year after year, morning after morning? That's the real key. Because I think almost everybody listening right now knows that exercise, eating whole foods, avoiding stress, being socially connected, they're all good for us. We all know what to do to live longer and be healthier. But to do it for long enough, that's where people collapse. And you seem to have taken this very grueling daily routine and stuck to it for 1,500 days or 1,600 days. So how do you do it? And how can the rest of us learn from you?
That's a great question. I don't know how people don't do it. Look at how my life has changed. I was a mediocre loser, slipping through the cracks of life, accepting mediocrity. And people could say, well, you had a successful finance career. You made a lot of money. I was like, yeah, but what good did it do me? I was suicidal. What did I leave on the table? Maybe I should have been the CEO of Goldman Sachs if I wasn't wasting 10 years of my life, the prime of my life. Like, I have tremendous regret. I can get stuck crying and thinking about it. I'm disgusted with myself, but I can't change that. But I can tell you that the things that have worked for me have been running, using endurance as a way to express myself and demonstrate to others what commitment and discipline looks like. And why would I try something different? There's like a ton of statistics that say athletic performance doesn't really drop off precipitously until you're about 70 years old. If you look at some guy over 60 just ran a sub 5-minute mile. And I firmly, I don't feel like I look like I'm 55, which I'll be in 1 month, but I take great pride in my presentation.
By the way, those of you who are listening, you should go to YouTube, the Dan Buettner podcast, and you can see Ken, and he's ripped. And he looks 20 years younger than his license age would suggest.
Well, here's the thing is your health, your mental and physical health is your number one responsibility in life. And it's whether you like it or not. Like, if you don't take care of yourself, the people that you love will have to take care of you. And I take my physical and mental health as serious as I take my obligations as a dad or as a husband, because I'm responsible for these people. They're like mine. Not in a physical sense, but they're like my people. Like, I love them more than anything. So what good would I be to them if I wasn't at my absolute best? And for me to be at my best, this is what I have to do. As I said earlier, I don't recommend this to anyone else. Don't do what I do. Find your own.
Do as I say, not as I did.
Find your own path in life, but I can tell you this, look at what it's given me. I'm here talking to you because of my discipline. And the other thing about the book is it's not like a rah-rah motivational thing. Like, you don't need motivation because, again, it sounds a bit corny, but motivation is like screaming and yelling, and discipline is like whispering in your ear at 4:30 in the morning when you got to get up and run in the snow because you got to take the kids skiing. And we're in Aspen and I'm running up and down the side of a mountain 10 miles in my ski gear. And I do it every single time we go skiing, we go to the beach, I get up and do it because discipline sets you free. Lack of discipline means you're a slave to your emotions. Like, oh, I don't feel like doing this, so you don't do it. Like, no. Discipline keeps you on track. It's changed the course of my life, and I wouldn't do anything differently. And I think that when you show up in fit and ready and in good shape, it speaks volumes about you to anyone you're going to do, especially doing business with. I can walk in and you can make certain assessments about me right away. Grit, determination, delayed gratification, commitment, integrity. You can't fake your way through any of this.
When I've studied the world's longest lived communities and blue zones, one of the values that keeps coming up is generosity. People who give, who feel connected, who show up for one another every day, tend to live longer, healthier lives. That's why I appreciate what Thrivent stands for. Thrivent is a financial services company that believes money is a tool, not a goal. And that idea really resonates with me because when money reflects your values, it can support a life of purpose, not just a bigger bank account. Thrivent offers advice, investments, insurance, banking, and also generosity programs because Thrivent believes deeply in generosity and in empowering people to be generous in their own communities. And I know that when generosity is woven into daily life, it builds stronger social bonds and leads to better health outcomes. Thrivent has over 120 years of expertise, and they've been a Fortune 500 company for over 30 years. Through their generosity programs, they have helped clients mobilize 17 million volunteer hours in 2025 alone. To me, that's values actually showing up and generosity in action. Learn more about this unique combination of financial services and generosity programs at Thrivent.com. There's a massive wave of energy headed to the Twin Cities soon with the draft. We're going to have thousands of fans coming right here to our local neighborhoods looking for a place to stay. These big events are the perfect time to list your place on Airbnb, especially if you're planning to head out of town for, say, a concert. That is what I love about listing my space on Airbnb. It's an incredibly practical way to participate in the local excitement while making a little extra money on the side. You don't have to do it year-round. You can do it when the timing works for you. If you have an upcoming trip on the books, consider listing your space on Airbnb. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host. When you look at the statistics in America, 76% of Americans don't even get 20 minutes of physical activity a day. So there are people listening here, and I'm sure they'd say, I'd love to get in better shape. Where do you find the discipline to do it? Number one, and number two, what advice do you give to people to stick at it? Because, you could say, all right, I just listened to Ken on the Dan Buettner podcast, and damn it, I'm going to go out and I'm going to start running right now. And they do it for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden it's raining one day, or all of a sudden their back hurts a little bit, or all of a sudden the friend calls and says, let's meet for breakfast, and you don't do it. So how do you find the presence of mind or the mental toughness to do it when you don't feel like it, or there's an easy excuse getting in the way?
Like I said earlier, I just decided this is the kind of person that I want to be. I want the things that discipline brings. I want to be recognized as someone. But
pretend I'm your son. Pretend I'm your son, and I say, Dad, yeah, I really admire what you do with your marathons. I want to train, and I want to be the athlete you are. How do I do it, Dad?
There's only one way. Discipline every single day. And if you want to be a participant, that's great. I prefer to be a competitor.
Do you have a mentor or a friend who keeps you on track? Do you rely on that, or
No.
If you recruited your wife to help?
No.
Nudge you out of the door?
My wife doesn't care about that. And initially, she probably thought I was crazy. You know what's funny? When I initially started training hard like this, there were lots of people in my life that looked at me like I was an asshole, that I was like crazy. Why is he training so much? Like, what a waste of time. Why is he doing all these Ironmans? Like, he's trying to be like the tallest midget. Like, who cares about the weekend warriors? Until it all started working. And then it was like, oh, wow, look what he did. But believe me, there were plenty of skeptics that thought I was an idiot when I was flogging myself and trying to get better. And I think that's that happens a lot in life, is that people will call you crazy when you're working hard towards a real goal. And then when you win, they'll say that you got lucky, or they'll have an excuse for you. But those are the same people that if you walked on water would tell you couldn't swim. I just don't have time for the negativity. Like, I live my life, you live your life. And if you like what I have, then you should try it. But to my children, I say, dude, if you want to win, there's only one way that I know how to win, and that's to outwork and out-hustle everyone. In a sport like running, the person who works the hardest in marathoning typically wins.
Would you stand for a child who decides, it's not for me. I want comfort. I want to enjoy my life. I don't want to put myself through pain. Would you be upset? Would you accept that?
I would be silently disappointed, but I have 4 children, Dan, and they're all uniquely different. And the youngest one is incredibly tough and disciplined, and he's 10 years old. He'll come down in the gym, he'll lift weights, he'll do pull-ups. My older guy is a little bit less so, but into it. And then my middle son is he loves sports, he's athletic, but he couldn't care less, and he does not want to be physical. He plays basketball. I'm like, buddy, if you don't get in front of the guy and like kind of put your body on him, he's going to go right past you. It looks like when he's driving, it looks like you're scared. You're like kind of stepping to the side. And he was like, I am scared. And I said, all right, guess what? Everyone is scared. You need to learn to do things while you're scared. And I promise you, once you get the feeling of like knowing everyone's scared and you get comfortable with being aggressive, it's going to get easier. Because I felt like that as a kid, but I taught myself on my own how to be tough. Doesn't come naturally to me. As a kid, I was scared of all the time of hitting, but I just realized that if you want to play a contact sport, you're going to get hit whether you like it or not. So you can either get hit or do the hitting. Even if someone's trying to tackle you, you can run with intensity and try to like run through them. And it took a while to figure that out.
So, the other side of hard, you talk about your marathons after 50. Tell us what it feels like. You're running at the end of 20 miles, your body is completely exhausted. You so want to quit. How do you push through that? First of all, what does it feel like to be a top athlete, fastest human over 50 running marathons? What does it feel like when you're running that fast for that long when you hit the wall? And what does that wall feel like? And how do you push to the other side of hard?
Well, there's a few questions there. How does it feel being identified as the fastest and the best? Right now, when I'm sitting here, it feels incredible. It doesn't seem real. I can't believe I did it. I still it doesn't seem like
Was that one race that crowned you the king?
Yeah, so there's a world championship. There's an age group world championship race every year at one of the world marathon majors. It rotates around. And it was in Chicago the year that I won.
And what was in Chicago?
Yeah.
You ran 26.2 miles. And how fast did you run that?
2:29.
That is
5:40 per mile.
That's phenomenal. That is an animal.
When it's working, and I've run my best times, it's magical. I'm just floating. It's hard, but I feel like, holy shit, I'm doing it. It's working. But
do you hit? Classically, they say mile 20 is the wall.
That's the halfway point. And that's the wall.
And you only have 6 miles to go, but
it is the halfway point.
Tell us what that feels like. Paint a picture for us. At mile 20, bam.
It feels like everything in your body is depleted. If you were in a car or an airplane and all the warning lights come on, you hit the wall only when you haven't done it right. Typically, you've gone out too hard. And that comes with experience of how to understand pacing early in the race. When you hit that wall, it just feels like everything is going haywire and your vision is blurred. If this is when it's not going right and you've hit a wall and you're like, oh my God, I'm not going to make it. And then because I know what it feels like to quit, because I can tell you another story about when I did the Ironman.
Are you thinking of your days of being an addict or days of being in prison or your uncles beating each other up?
I paint enemies of everyone I'm competing against and everyone watching, and I convince myself everyone's rooting for my demise. And I'm like, F you guys, you can't stop me. I'm doing this, and I just keep
That's dark, Ken.
Yeah. But I get to the point where I'm like, I would die before I stop running. And I've demonstrated that many times and left in an ambulance and collapsed at the finish line, and not in the drama queen sense of the word, where I literally got to the finish line and just fainted. But the reason that I know why I want to keep pushing through this, or how to keep pushing through, is the first time that I qualified for the Ironman in Hawaii, I got there and I was so happy to be there. Well, to me, it was the equivalent of qualifying for the Olympics at that point in my life. And when I got there, my wife standing on the side of the road cheering for me. And I did a 2.5 mile swim in the ocean, then a 112 mile bike ride in Hawaii in the middle of the hottest part of the day, and start the marathon at 1 p.m. And I got to around 3 or 4 miles when my wife was standing in. Funny enough, she's recording and I'm kind of giving her this like cut sign, like stop recording me, I'm going to quit. And she was like, what do you mean you're going to quit? I'm like, I can't go on. I'm like, I'm so depleted. I have 22 miles to go. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to drop out. I'll try it again another time. And I gave myself every excuse and convinced myself that it was okay to quit. And then like a dead dog loser, I walked back to finish the transition area and quit and just dropped out of the race. And when I did that, literally with tears in my eyes, I was like, I will never quit again. I would rather be dead than feel like this. Then I went to Mongolia and won a race across the Gobi Desert, 155 miles.
Yeah, I saw that on your video.
Yeah, trained for like 4 weeks, didn't know what I was doing. Yeah, but I went there, same thing. I was like, I know all these guys want to kill me, but I'm going to kill them. And I won by 90 minutes.
Jesus.
Against the experienced field of like international like endurance adventure racers. I didn't know anything. I didn't want to sleep in a tent. I didn't want to do any of that stuff, but I did it.
Did you get to know your fellow contestants in that race, or did you leave? Were they as hateful as you painted them during the race?
No, they were all nice. I think some of them didn't like me, but I didn't care. I wasn't necessarily likable.
I find you likable, Ken, in
a
sort of a tough guy sort of way.
In a competitive environment, I'm competitive. I'm not trying to be friends with people till it's over, and then when it's over, I love everyone. But
that's the right attitude. Conjure the enemy in the adversary while you're doing it, but afterwards, love them.
Yeah.
I used to run marathons. I ran a marathon. I hold 3 records: biking Alaska to Argentina, biking around the world, and biking across the Americas, Alaska to Argentina. The people in this sort of endurance world, they're built like string beans. Yeah. And here you come in and your biceps are bulging and you're...
I don't know about that. I weigh 170 pounds.
But you're ripped. And
I eat a healthy diet, but I don't want people who aren't watching to think that I'm like a big muscular guy.
No, you're very muscular for a marathoner. And you said something which when we first met, and that is going to the gym is like putting money in the bank.
Yes.
I'm just wondering what advice you have for people for building muscle, going to the gym.
To be clear, I lift weights hard 4 days a week. Like the time that I spend in the gym is crazy intense. I go in, I do like a typical workout would be like 3 rounds of these exercises. I do 20 to 30 pull-ups with varying grips in and out. And then I would do bench press up to like 225 pounds for the first, one warm-up set, and then like 185, 225 for like 4 or 5 reps. Then I would do a bunch of sit-ups. I'd do some shoulder presses. But again, everything is like with serious intention. There's no like wasted movement or reps in there. And I do that usually 4 days a week, every other day at a minimum. And that I think makes a massive difference. And I also eat a ton of protein. I eat somewhat of a ketogenic diet. I eat tons of eggs, meat, proteins, and then fruits and vegetables. And I try not to eat any bread, rice, pasta, and stuff like that.
The antithesis of a Blue Zone diet, but you look good. What about supplements? What supplements do you find work in building muscle? And
no doubt.
Building endurance?
I think protein is incredibly important if you're building muscle. And then I take creatine every day, usually 10 grams. I take some chewable creatine tablets from Momentous first thing in the morning with coffee. And then I'll have 5 grams in a recovery shake as soon as I'm done running. It's called Recovery from Momentous. It's got the right blend of proteins and carbs to recover, because I can lose a lot of weight really quickly. And usually my wife will be like, dude, get it together. You're like gonna weigh less than me soon. And that's when I'm like, okay, time to start eating more.
Your wife sounds like more of a taskmaster than you let on. I mean, it sounds like she kind of keeps you
No, my
motivated.
wife saved my life. I mean, she's the best. She's very... her dream job when I married her was to be a mom. She went to Vanderbilt, had a teaching degree. She's a sign language interpreter. She was an actress. She does like sign language interpreting in the school district where we live in Brentwood, Tennessee. She's a substitute teacher. She's She loves being a mom, and that's what I wanted. What was missing in my life was the kind of family she comes from. And to a certain extent, I think marrying her was almost like I was marrying the mom that I always wanted, because I wanted her to be the mom of my kids. I mean, she's also beautiful and all the things that go with it, but she's very much like the mom of all of us. So I'm like
Lucky
the biggest
you.
kid in the house.
Yeah, and it sounds like she's your biggest gift.
Oh, definitely. Listen, we can be at each other's throats at times too, but like it's being married isn't an easy job. I tell people all the time, when you're dating someone, you're like dating your friend, you're hanging out, you're doing fun stuff, you're going traveling every weekend. Then you have kids, and it's like all of a sudden you like run a deadly serious business together that's open 24/7, 365. And now all of a sudden you're like, hey, who's going to get up with the kids? And I'm like, well, yeah, I can't breastfeed the kids. And she's like, I've been up with them 14 days in a row. And I'm like, well, I got to go to work in the morning. And you really learn to work together as a team. And I would be lying if I didn't say it was all like, rainbows and waterfalls. It took work. And, probably a lot of the problems are started with me, but I've done a ton of work to become a better person and a better man, including like checking myself into a trauma healing center a few years ago. And
Tell us about how you heal from trauma, because you're not alone in having suffered from trauma.
Yeah. One thing I'll tell you about trauma, and that a lot of people have to realize, is that the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to you is the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to you. I don't care if you were just yelled at by a teacher or a coach, or you were sexually assaulted. Your brain knows, I've been traumatized and I'm hurt by this.
That's a very good point. It doesn't, yes.
If you don't deal with it.
And how do you deal with trauma?
I didn't know how to deal with it, so I checked into a place called On-Site Workshops in Tennessee, and there's other places like the Hoffman
And this
Institute.
trauma, you believe, was from the junkie uncle of yours who was...
Nah,
where did the trauma come in
when
here?
he wasn't whacked out and stealing for drugs, he was like a lovely guy.
I mean, where did the trauma come from?
Oh, probably from like getting smacked around by my mother and my stepfathers and like all these like losers in my life that thought it was okay to hit me. And in 23, I checked into this facility, and again, it's on-site workshop. It's similar to like a Hoffman Institute or the Bridges.
Where they crack you open.
Yeah, you're in intensive therapy all day for like 5 days. And I was in individual intensive therapy and with a therapist, my own therapist, all day, every day. And it's like this woman was like a magician.
What is the exercise that relieves that trauma? Or at least
I'm going to tell you.
Okay, shut up, Dan.
So I'm with this woman who was like a magician. I said to her, like, look, I believe you're only as sick as the secret you keep, and I'm just going to tell you everything. So we start talking, and then, like, I don't think I was telling her everything, mainly probably out of embarrassment, but it was subconsciously. So she starts asking questions. She's like, she figured me out in like 2 hours. And I was like, I've never cried so much in my life. I said to her, I don't think I had trauma. I think I had like a shitty childhood, but like, everybody does, right? Everyone has their own challenges. So then she started asking me, well, what if these things happen to your children? And I was like, that's when I lost it. Cause I was like, I couldn't imagine someone beating my kids the way that I got beat. I couldn't even imagine it. But she was like, why do you think that it was okay for you, but not okay for them? I was like, I don't think they could survive it. And she said, but you did. You do think you're special? And I've always said, like, I'm not special. No one is. We're all the same. I'm sure you've met like super famous people and you realize they're just good at acting, or they're just good at boxing, or whatever their gift is. And it's like, okay, you know me from running, but like, I'm still like a flawed mental patient. Like I'm still trying to figure it out. Like sometimes when people ask me like, how are you doing all this? I'm like, I'm surviving. I'm like figuring out a way to survive day to day. And this is my coping mechanism. So anyway, we go through all the things, and she's like, let's put names to all these characters. This person, which card would you pick? And I'm like, I start picking cards like, fire breathing dragon, a lizard. And she's like, look at all the characters in your life. And I was like, yeah, they were pretty shitty. And, it was eye-opening for me to kind of go through that exercise, and it wasn't easy, and it definitely wasn't fun.
You get extra points for vulnerability on this podcast. What is one of the secrets that you told that therapist that you were embarrassed you wouldn't say, and you told her and it somehow relieved?
It wasn't necessarily secrets. It was just things that I think that I didn't really want to talk about like the physical beatings and stuff. Like,
Can you think of one that was especially poignant that felt good to say it?
I mean, no, I just remember. I remember one time I did something wrong. I
Because
don't
you
even know
said
what it was.
that secrets are what make you sick or something like that.
You never heard that expression?
No,
It's a
but I
big
like it.
recovery expression. You're only as sick as the secrets you keep.
So what was one of the secrets that you unburdened yourself
Well,
with?
I wouldn't say, well, I mean, obviously my addiction was a big one. And that's where the expression comes from, recovery rooms. But I would say that there was just, I told the therapist about a time that I did something wrong and my stepfather was like, oh, you know, you're going to get the belt now. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. And I was like, all right. And he's like, do you want it now or after dinner? And I was like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? I said, let's just get it over with. And it was like, I just hadn't thought about it. And then when I said it to her, I was like, ugh, so gross. I hate that this happened to me.
And it was a serious licking?
Yeah. I mean, a grown man is whipping me with a belt. Maniac.
There's a point we glossed over, and to a certain extent, to a certain point, you've had some extraordinary luck in your life, and I know you've been through a lot of hardship. But where were you during 9/11? Those attacks?
Yeah, I was in London, but I worked at Kenner Fitzgerald on the top floor of the World Trade Center. And when I got that job, I was working for a competitor and they wanted to hire me to work in New York for a huge job, but I had a contract and it had a non-compete clause. So they said, hey, go to London for a few months and help us start the European business. And when your contract with this other firm's up, you come back to New York. So it's very possible, it's very likely in hindsight that I could have been there on the top floor where all the people that worked
Everyone
with
died.
me, everyone died.
Yeah. So have you ever thought that maybe someone's looking over you? Actually, maybe you do have a guardian angel?
No, because I would have said, where the hell were you when I was addicted to drugs? Why didn't you help me there? I think it was just
you came out of it, for crying out loud.
Yeah, but I did that. The harder I worked, the luckier I got.
That's a phrase I use often, so I'll go with that.
I definitely don't feel like I'm lucky. I don't. I feel like I'm lucky to have my wife and my kids in that regard. But I've also worked very hard to create all the things that I have. And it wasn't without a lot of pain and struggle and suffering.
Are you happy right now?
Another great question. Sometimes.
If, the standard question that scientists use to assess happiness, if you imagine your life as a whole, how you feel, what you've achieved, what you've experienced, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being your best imaginable life, how satisfied are you with your life? What number?
9.
That's about as good as it gets. I mean, it's 10.
I've done a lot of things.
I generally think people say 10, they're lying, but 9, it leaves it some time for pain and some time for unhappiness.
I wish that the addiction part of my life hadn't happened. I wish I had studied harder in school. I wish I had gone to the Naval Academy and done some military service and then got out and got an MBA from Harvard. I wish that I could have done all those things. I wish I knew then what I know now. I didn't have someone telling me, like, don't F around in college because you might want to get a master's degree. And if you have a 2.3 grade point average, you're not going to get into any school worth having a master's from. And I painted myself into a corner in that regard. And then when I got to Wall Street and realized, like, shit, I've eliminated myself from a lot of jobs just because of my resume. I would go to job interviews and say to them, as soon as they looked at my resume, I said, look, I know you're looking at my resume and thinking, how the hell is this guy in here for an interview? Because, I mean, I was on trading desks with like every single person there was like, had an MBA or went to like double Ivy League degrees. And I had a sociology degree from Framingham State. But I prided myself on every sales trading desk that I worked on. I was the biggest producer on every single desk. I always made more money than everyone else because we were paid on commission, especially when it was an eat what you kill environment, meaning you got paid on commission based on the profits you generate. And I was just had a knack for hustling and building relationships and having good rapport with clients. And I had unusually high, relatively speaking, emotional intelligence and could connect with people. And I also realized early in my life that being interesting, I used to think I was being interesting, but then I came to realize as I got older that I was being interested. I'm interested in a lot of things.
You know, in listening to you, I see a lot of your healing and identity comes from these incredible physical feats of being physically fit, of being the fastest man alive at 50. But the reality of aging is this vessel, this body that we carry around, disintegrates,
I know.
deteriorates with
Sad.
time. Our muscle mass is lost. Our joints go out. What happens to Ken Rideout when your knees go out or your hip go out? And something's going to happen. What happens when you can no longer grind it out in the gym or run 10 miles?
I'm going to be the over 70 endurance swim champion of the world. I don't know. Maybe I'll become a chess master.
All right. So it's going to be something.
People ask me that a lot. And I'm like, listen, I'm a survivor. If you think that I'm going to be lessened because I can't run, running's just something I do. I don't even identify as a runner. It's just a tool to like demonstrate my discipline. I don't know. It's like, it's not like, oh, I can't wait to run. I don't have passion for it. I just do it. That's discipline.
How do you want your children to remember you?
Oh, my children are incredibly proud of me. That's the greatest accomplishment of my life is that my kids are genuinely proud of me. And when I drop them at parties and they're like, Dad, can you come in and some of my friends want to take a picture with you, or they want to, all my friends want a signed book, or my friend's dad wants to meet you at the football game. Can you introduce yourself? And it's the greatest thing. Walking off the airplane, coming here, some guy runs up to me and says, hey, are you Ken? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I just read your book. It's so incredible. I'm like, you were on that flight? Yeah. I said, why didn't you say hello on the flight? He's like, I didn't want to bother you. But that happens a lot. Someone will send me a DM on Instagram like, were you just on this flight, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah. Oh, I was on the flight. I said, why didn't you say hello?
That's so wonderful.
I love it. It's like the greatest thing is that people like and respect me for my work ethic, because I'm not necessarily good. Like, okay, I ran a 2:28 marathon. The damn winner ran 2 hours flat. I'm a minute a mile slower. Like I'm light years worse, but I'm the best.
You're 55 years old, for crying out loud.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. It's like I'm aware of my station in life, and to your question, like I'd find something else to do, but I need discipline in my life, and I need structure, and I need something to focus on other than work.
I kind of went the other way. I set these 3 world records by the time I was 33 for biking across 5 continents. And I completely lost my appetite for competition. And I continue to bike to this, I do long bike rides still, and I do something active every day. I didn't run 10 miles this morning, but I walked briskly up a hill. And I kind of shifted from that need to win from more trying to frame my day and my physical activity as something I enjoy. And at the end of the day, I don't know, I just think I guess there's kind of 2 camps of people. The one camp of people who need that discipline to get them motivated. Other camp of people, I think, and this is certainly true in the blue zones, nobody has discipline in the blue zones. People act as a product of their environment. And the longest lived men in the world live in a cluster of villages in the highlands of Sardinia. Not one of them has ever been in a gym their entire life. They're about 15 times more likely to reach age 100 than an American. There's no gyms up there. In fact, one of the villages that we recently visited has one gym, and we went and talked to the doctor there, and about the older generation, the people that were making it over 80. And I asked the doctor, what are the most common reasons that people over 80 come here? I was interested in, what plagues somebody who's making it to 100. And she said, oh, they get injured at that new gym. But their life is, they get up when the sun's warm. They spend 5 or 7 kilometers or 3 to 5 miles in the morning walking with their sheep. They have lunch, they take a nap, a few more miles with their sheep. By 5 o'clock, they're back in their village having a glass of wine with their family. And it's just, it always mystifies me that this sort of definition of physical prowess and the health is your brand of it. It's sort of the Peter Attia, work out, build muscle. But people who are actually making it to 100 aren't doing that at all. And it's just, and one of the reasons I was so interested in in talking to you, Ken, is because, with this podcast, I try to explore all facets. And I honestly believe your approach is great for some people. And I think you've done a wonderful job at creating a story that motivates people. At the end of the day, you can give people science all day long, how to build muscle, how to perform athletically. But the best vehicle to our brain for these messages is through our heart. And you tell this beautiful story, a tough story of suffering as a kid, of enduring things you shouldn't have to endure as a child, at getting a job you need to get and understanding that that doesn't work for you, and having the courage to get out of that, entering a difficult environment in New York where you got involved with drugs. And we know, I think in many cases, the addict is the victim until he realizes he doesn't need to be a victim, but you got out of that. And you recognized the power in a good woman, and you became a good husband and raised 4 great kids and got successful. And then after 50, became the fastest human in the world. And in Okinawa, we would call that ikigai. What's ikigai? It's the sense of purpose. It's a thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. And I don't think I've ever met anybody with a stronger sense of ikigai than you. And you're living it, and you're thriving because of it. And you just wrote this fantastic bestseller, The Other Side of Hard. And I guess as kind of a final question, I'd like you to talk about what kind of people do you want to read this book, and what is the message you want them to take away?
Well, I can tell you that most of the positive feedback I get is from either men in like 30 to 60 years old, or wives of men who might be going through similar struggles that I went through. And the messages are incredible, that people just feel like inspired and motivated. I think that the book is for anyone who feels like they might be a victim, because I tell inmates, even when I speak at prisons, you are not a victim. As long as you identify as a victim, you're going to be a victim, because whatever you think about yourself, it's true. You think you're a loser? You probably are. You can also think of yourself as a winner and start taking steps to behave like a winner. And that's put down the drugs, put down the alcohol, start walking. It doesn't have to be running. Maybe you're into the guitar. Play the guitar better than anyone else. If you're a golfer, become a scratch golfer. Golf is a simple game. The person who practices the most will be the best. The same thing goes for any endeavor. You want to be a race car driver? Take your car to the track every weekend and drive more than everyone else. You'll probably be the best. So the book is for people that are looking for a spark, or looking on the, standing on the precipice of change and not sure how to do it. I say the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. Show up one day and see what you can do. Then go back the next day, and then just quit the following day. Quit tomorrow, every day. Tomorrow is my last day. And then when you get there, make it the next day, and just get through the next day, and stop thinking about things in months and weeks and just worry about today. Like, I have a much better day when I get up and do one thing that I know is helping me be a better person and helping me take care of my top responsibility. There's a famous speech. I think it was General McCraven. I think he gave a speech, a commencement speech about making your bed.
Oh, yeah.
Get up and make your bed. You have one win to start the day. When you go home and get in that bed at the end of the day, you're going to look at it and be like, oh, my bed's not so nicely made. The point is, start the day with a win. It's very easy, because you can easily wake up, feel lazy, and give into the laziness. And then you carry that negative mindset with you the rest of the day. Like, oh, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. That feeling is too much for me. If I know I have to be here at 9:30 in the morning, there's no freaking way I can fly in this morning and run right here. So I had to come in the night before. I plan my life around my responsibilities.
Besides the book, how else do we get in touch with you? What else are you doing that people be interested in connecting with you on?
Yeah, I have a podcast that I think is very successful, and I have really meaningful conversations with people that have done hard things. This guest today was Eric Decker, who played in the NFL for several years, and he was actually my roommate at the on-site workshops. And it's funny, because when people are like, how do you know Eric Decker? I'm like, oh, I met him in a psych ward.
I'll listen to that one.
Yeah. No,
what's the name of your
fantastic.
podcast?
It's The Other Side of Hard.
Okay.
And then I post a lot of content from the podcast and from my own thoughts on life on Instagram and Twitter, social media.
Is that a Ken Rideout?
Ken Rideout, yeah.
All right. Everything You Want is on the other side of hard. The fantastic book, fantastic story, important lessons. Thank you so much, Ken.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.